The sun was bright over Crescent Valley, a quiet neighborhood filled with perfect lawns, smiling mailboxes, and houses that all looked the same. It was the kind of place where everything was supposed to be peaceful and ordinary, but behind that calm look, secrets often waited to be found. A new resident had just moved into the corner house on Maple Drive. His name was Ryan, a man in his early 30s who looked like an ordinary worker. He wore simple clothes, drove an old black car, and greeted neighbors with polite smiles. Most people thought he was shy, maybe even a little boring, but that was exactly how he wanted it. In truth, Ryan was not an office worker. He was an FBI undercover agent. His recent mission had ended only 2 weeks ago, and his department had asked him to take a short break. They said he could rest, live quietly, and stay away from trouble for a while. What they did not know was that even quiet places could hold strange things, and Crescent Valley was about to prove it. Ryan's cover story was simple. He worked as a data consultant for a small tech company. He rented the house, paid all bills on time, and followed every rule written in the thick HOA book. The Homeowners Association, or HOA, controlled everything in Crescent Valley, from the color of your mailbox to the kind of plants you could grow. The HOA made sure the neighborhood looked perfect. The leader of the HOA was Karen, a woman in her 40s who loved rules more than anything else. Her yard had perfectly trimmed hedges, and her house always smelled of disinfectant. She was proud of her position and believed she was protecting the beauty of the neighborhood. Some people respected her, but most feared her. Ryan noticed her on his second day. She came walking with a clipboard in her hand, inspecting houses like a general checking soldiers. When she reached his property, she smiled stiffly and said, "Welcome to Crescent Valley. I hope you read the HOA handbook. We like things done the right way here." Ryan gave a polite smile. "Yes, ma'am. I've read it. I'll make sure to follow the rules." She nodded with satisfaction and walked away. Ryan watched her go, his trained eyes catching small details. She carried a walkie-talkie even though it was not needed. Her car had a camera on the dashboard facing the street. She liked control. He decided to stay careful around her. During the first week, Ryan kept his head down. He unpacked his things, set up his home office, and met a few friendly neighbors. A kind elderly man named Ben from next door told him about the area. "Karen runs the HOA like a queen," Ben said with a chuckle. "You better stay on her good side or she'll find a way to fine you." Ryan smiled and thanked him. He was used to dealing with people who wanted control. In his work, he had faced hackers, smugglers, and liars. A strict neighbor was not something that could shake him. One afternoon, after finishing his morning reports for his agency, Ryan decided to visit the community pool. The air was warm, and the sound of children playing echoed through the streets. He took his towel, sunglasses, and the small pool access card that came with his house keys. It was supposed to open the gate automatically. When he reached the pool area, he saw a few families relaxing under umbrellas. Everything seemed normal. He swiped his card and entered. The card worked perfectly. He swam for about half an hour, enjoying the peace that he rarely got during missions. But peace never lasted long in Ryan's life. As he sat on the chair drying off, a sharp voice behind him said, "Excuse me, sir. May I see your pool key?" He turned and saw Karen standing there, holding her clipboard as usual. Her eyes were narrow and her mouth was pressed into a hard line. "Of course," Ryan said calmly. He reached into his bag and handed her the card. She looked at it closely. "This number isn't registered in the system yet. Did you forget to file your HOA registration?" "I submitted it last week," Ryan replied politely. "Maybe it just hasn't been updated." Karen shook her head. "Rules are rules. Until your name appears on the active list, you cannot use community property. That includes the pool." A few people turned to watch. Ryan felt their eyes on him. He could see the judgment in their faces. He did not like attention, especially while undercover. He stood and said gently, "I'll check with the office tomorrow. Thank you for letting me know." Karen looked disappointed that he didn't argue. "Please do. We take violations seriously here." She turned sharply and walked away. Ryan gathered his things and left. Inside, he was calm, but his instincts told him something was odd. He knew paperwork errors happened, but something about Karen's timing felt too precise. He had moved in just days ago, yet she was already watching his every move. That night, as he sat at his kitchen table eating a simple dinner, he thought about the encounter. His instincts were rarely wrong. In his career, he had learned that sometimes the most harmless places hid the biggest secrets. Crescent Valley looked peaceful, but it had strange energy. The next morning, Ryan called the HOA office to confirm his registration. The clerk on the phone checked the records and said his information was already entered. That meant Karen's claim was false. Ryan thanked the clerk and made a mental note. Later in the day, he saw Karen walking with another woman near the mailboxes. They whispered while glancing at his house. He pretended not to notice, but his mind was already at work. Why was she paying so much attention to him? Was it just curiosity or something more? By evening, things became stranger. A police car parked across the street. The officer inside sat there for a while, pretending to check his phone. Ryan noticed the badge number and wrote it down in his notepad. The next day, when Ryan stepped outside to water his small garden, the same police car stopped in front of his driveway. The officer stepped out. He was tall, wearing sunglasses and a sharp uniform. He looked confident but carried a hint of arrogance. "Morning," the officer said. "You're the new resident, right?" "Name's Dale. I'm with the local department. I'm also Karen's husband." Ryan stayed calm. "Yes, I'm Ryan. Is there a problem, officer?" Dale crossed his arms. "My wife told me you've been using the pool without proper authorization. That's against HOA policy. I'll need your pool keys for inspection." Ryan looked at him carefully. "I spoke with the HOA office yesterday. They said my registration is active. There must be some misunderstanding." Dale's tone hardened. "We'll check that ourselves. Just hand over the keys and we'll return them once it's verified." Ryan nodded slowly. "Of course, officer." He reached into his pocket and handed over the pool card, but before doing so, he pressed a small button on his wristwatch. It looked like a regular fitness tracker, but it was an FBI surveillance device. Every word was now being recorded. Dale took the card and walked back to his car. Ryan watched him leave and then went back inside. He replayed the last few minutes in his mind. Dale's words, his tone, and his connection with Karen made things clear. This was not about a pool key. They were testing him, but why? Ryan opened his laptop and accessed a secure communication channel. He typed a short message to his contact at the bureau. It was a simple update marked as observation only. He did not want to raise an alarm yet, but he wanted the bureau to know something was off. For the next few days, he continued his life as usual. He worked from home, kept to himself, and avoided any more attention. But Karen did not stop. Every morning she walked by his house taking notes. Sometimes Dale's patrol car appeared nearby for no reason. One evening, Ryan decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. He passed by the community office and saw the light still on even though it was late. Through the window, he saw Karen inside talking to a man he did not recognize. The man wore a suit and had a briefcase. They were looking at papers that seemed more important than regular HOA files. Ryan took a mental picture of the scene. His instincts sharpened. Something about this was not normal HOA business. He quietly moved away before they noticed him. Back home, he poured himself a cup of tea and sat by the window. The street was silent except for the soft sound of crickets. He opened his notebook and started writing down every detail he had observed since moving in. Each event was small, but together, they formed a pattern. Karen's sudden interest in his activities. The false accusation about the pool card. The police involvement by her husband. The late-night meeting with a stranger. Ryan leaned back in his chair. He had entered Crescent Valley looking for rest. Now it felt like he had walked into a puzzle. He did not know yet how deep it went, but one thing was sure. He would find out. Before going to bed, he placed a small recording device near his window facing the street. It would capture any unusual movement during the night. As he lay in bed, he thought about his training. His mind was calm, steady, and focused. Trouble had found him again, but he was ready. In Crescent Valley, everyone thought Ryan was just another quiet man living an ordinary life. But if they had known who he really was, they might have thought twice before crossing him. The pool key might have been a small thing, but for Ryan, it had become a sign that something hidden was waiting to be uncovered. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "Let's see what secrets this perfect neighborhood is hiding." The night outside remained silent, but in that silence, something dangerous was already moving. The next morning in Crescent Valley began like every other day. The lawns were green, the houses looked perfect, and the sound of sprinklers filled the air. But inside Ryan's house, the atmosphere was sharp with quiet focus. He sat at his small kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, reading through the notes he had written last night. The sunlight hit the page, showing the neat handwriting that listed every strange thing he had noticed since moving in. Ryan's instincts told him that what had started as a small issue about a pool key was turning into something bigger. His recording device had captured a few unusual things during the night. Around midnight, 2 cars had stopped near Karen's house. One belonged to Dale, and the other was a dark van with no license plate lights. 2 men got out and entered the HOA office. They stayed for about 15 minutes before leaving. Ryan did not see their faces clearly, but their behavior was not normal for a neighborhood office at night. He uploaded the footage to his secure drive. The Bureau might not see it as urgent yet, but he liked to keep evidence ready. His plan was simple. He would stay calm, act normal, and gather more information without raising suspicion. By afternoon, Ryan decided to visit the HOA office to check on the pool card issue again. The building was small and located near the community park. Inside, the walls were filled with posters about community safety, upcoming events, and HOA rules printed in large, bold letters. Behind the counter sat a woman named Mira, the office assistant. She was kind and seemed tired of Karen's strict leadership. "Hello, Mr. Ryan," she said with a polite smile. "How can I help you today?" "I just wanted to confirm if my pool access card is working fine," he said. "There seems to be some misunderstanding." Mira typed something on her computer and then frowned slightly. "Your name is listed as active. The card should work." "Did someone tell you otherwise?" "Yes," Ryan replied. "Mrs. Karen mentioned it was invalid." Mira sighed quietly. "She does that sometimes. She likes to double-check everything. I'll print a confirmation slip for you. Keep it in case she asks again." Ryan thanked her and took the paper. As he turned to leave, he noticed a door behind the counter marked Private Records. A small security keypad was installed beside it. For a neighborhood office, that level of security looked unnecessary. He walked out slowly, thinking about it. Why would an HOA office need a private room with electronic locks? His instincts sharpened again. When he returned home, he noticed Dale's police car parked at the corner of the street. The officer was watching the area as if on patrol, but Ryan could tell the focus was more on his house than the neighborhood. He ignored it and entered his home calmly. Hours passed. The sun began to set, painting the sky in soft orange shades. Ryan was reviewing his notes when he heard a knock on the door. When he opened it, Dale stood there in full uniform with his hands on his belt. "Evening," Dale said. His tone was firm. "We need to talk." "Of course, officer," Ryan replied politely. Dale stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. His eyes moved around the house quickly as if scanning for something. "I got reports that you've been filming people around the neighborhood," he said. "Karen saw a camera near your window last night." Ryan looked calm. "That camera is for personal security. It faces the street like many others in this area. Is there a problem?" Dale crossed his arms. "You seem too secretive for a new resident. You moved here alone, no family, no guests, and you keep your windows covered most of the time. Makes people wonder what you're hiding." Ryan smiled slightly. "I prefer privacy, officer. That's all." Dale leaned closer. "You might want to cooperate with the HOA. My wife runs this community and she values order." "I have no problem following the rules," Ryan said in a calm tone. "But I also believe in fairness." Dale's expression hardened. "Fairness doesn't mean breaking regulations. If we find out you're causing trouble, we'll deal with it." Ryan stayed silent. He let Dale finish and then said, "If you or Mrs. Karen have any official complaint, please file it through the HOA office. I'll respond properly." For a moment, they stared at each other. Ryan's expression was calm, but his eyes showed quiet strength. Dale felt uneasy without knowing why. Finally, he nodded and walked out, saying, "We'll be watching." When the door closed, Ryan exhaled slowly. He knew people like Dale. They were used to control, to being feared. But Ryan had worked undercover with real criminals before. A local officer and his over-controlling wife were not going to shake him. He sat down and replayed the audio from his wrist device. Every word Dale had said was recorded. The tone, the threat, and even the mention of "we'll be watching" could become useful later. The next morning, Ryan decided to learn more about the HOA's private records room. He planned carefully. He did not want to break any rules openly, but he could use legal methods to gather clues. He joined a small community group meeting held at the park. Many residents attended, including Karen, who stood in front of the crowd with her clipboard as usual. Her husband was there too, standing near his patrol car. Ryan blended in with the neighbors, pretending to be just another face in the group. Karen spoke proudly about maintenance budgets, upcoming painting schedules, and security upgrades. But one thing caught Ryan's attention. She mentioned that the HOA had started a data system improvement project in cooperation with an external company named SilverArc Solutions. The name struck him immediately. During one of his past FBI missions, he had come across a report involving SilverArc Solutions. It had been linked to data laundering and fraud schemes under investigation in another state. The pattern matched perfectly. Ryan realized that Crescent Valley might not just be a quiet neighborhood. It could be one of the locations being used to hide illegal money transfers through fake maintenance budgets. After the meeting ended, Karen approached him with her usual forced smile. "I hope everything is clear now about the rules, Mr. Ryan. We like our residents to stay honest and responsible." Ryan smiled politely. "Of course, Mrs. Karen, I understand completely." She nodded and walked away, proud of her authority. Dale gave Ryan a short stare before following her. That night, Ryan connected his encrypted laptop to a hidden signal receiver he carried in his bag. It looked like a normal router, but it could scan local digital activity. He ran a search for any network connected to SilverArc Solutions in the area. Within minutes, several connections appeared, one of them linked directly to the HOA office server. He leaned back in his chair, thinking deeply. This was proof that something larger was happening, but he needed more solid evidence before contacting his team. He could not risk revealing his identity yet. The next day, while everyone was busy with their routines, Ryan walked near the HOA office again. Mira was outside watering plants. She waved and smiled. "Busy day?" he asked casually. "Always," she said. "Karen wants all the files moved into the private room. She says the new system will handle everything automatically." Ryan's eyes focused. "The private room? The one behind the counter?" "Yes," she said. "They keep new digital servers there. But honestly, I don't understand why they need so many." "Must be a big system," Ryan said lightly, hiding his real curiosity. "Karen and her tech partner from SilverArc handle it," Mira added. "We just follow instructions." Ryan thanked her for the chat and walked away. Inside, his thoughts were running fast. This information confirmed his theory. The private room was the control point for their data laundering system. That evening, Ryan went out for a walk as usual. He carried a small pen that worked as a signal tracker. As he passed near the HOA building, he clicked the pen once. The device blinked softly, confirming a heavy data signal coming from inside. He continued walking calmly, pretending to look at flowers and greeting neighbors. From the outside, nothing looked suspicious. But inside that small building, something illegal was running quietly under the name of neighborhood management. When he returned home, he received a message on his secure FBI line. It was short and direct. "Status check. Any suspicious activity?" He typed his reply. "Possible data laundering network hidden inside HOA systems. Will confirm soon." He sent the message and deleted it immediately. That night, Ryan sat near his window looking at the streetlights. Dale's police car passed by again, slowing near his house before driving away. Ryan did not move. He only smiled faintly. He had faced dangerous enemies before, but this case felt different. It was quiet and hidden, wrapped inside fake normal life. These people were confident because they thought no one would look at a suburban HOA, but they had no idea that an FBI agent lived among them. Ryan leaned back in his chair and whispered, "You want to watch me?" "Fine. I'll watch you closer." Outside, the neighborhood slept in peace, unaware that their perfect world was starting to crack from the inside. The sun rose slowly over Crescent Valley, spilling golden light across the quiet streets. Children rode bicycles along the sidewalks, and birds chirped from the perfectly trimmed trees. Everything looked peaceful and ordinary, but Ryan knew better. Behind the calm appearance of the neighborhood, something was hidden, something that needed to be uncovered. Ryan had spent the last few days carefully observing Karen, her husband Dale, and the HOA office. He had recorded conversations, mapped their routines, and traced the digital signals coming from the private records room. The patterns were clear. Crescent Valley's HOA was more than it seemed. The connections with SilverArc Solutions and the strange late-night meetings indicated that money or data was moving through the neighborhood under the cover of normal administration. Ryan began his morning as usual, sitting at his small desk with a cup of black coffee. He reviewed the footage of Dale and the unknown men entering the HOA office late at night. He rewound it several times, looking for any clue he might have missed. Even small details mattered. The men's shoes, the way they carried their briefcases, and the quick glances toward the camera all told a story. After finishing his review, Ryan decided it was time to gather more information. He could not confront Karen or Dale yet. Doing so openly would alert them and possibly ruin the opportunity to capture the bigger operation. Instead, he needed to infiltrate the HOA network and trace the flow of digital activity. He powered on his laptop, which was connected to a secure FBI network disguised as a personal home system. Using a small device hidden in his bag, he accessed the HOA office's digital signals. The private records room emitted a strong, continuous signal. By analyzing it carefully, he traced the flow of data to a server labeled Community Funds Management. Ryan frowned. The name seemed innocent, but his experience told him otherwise. Data like this could hide transactions, transfers, or coded instructions. Every detail could reveal how money was moved and who was behind it. After analyzing the system for hours, Ryan discovered several unusual patterns. Small amounts of money were being transferred daily through community accounts, but the transactions appeared legitimate at first glance. The records were manipulated to look like normal HOA expenses for landscaping, pool maintenance, and security upgrades. Only someone trained to notice discrepancies could see the hidden truth. Ryan leaned back in his chair. He realized that Karen herself might not know the full extent of the operation. She appeared strict and controlling, but she was likely a pawn in a larger scheme controlled by external actors. Someone had found a way to use Crescent Valley's HOA system as a safe, hidden channel for financial operations. He made a careful plan. First, he needed more evidence. He could not rely on assumptions. Second, he needed to observe Karen and Dale without raising suspicion. Third, he would record every interaction with SilverArc's representatives. Timing would be critical. Ryan left his house and walked toward the community pool, carrying a small backpack with recording devices and signal trackers. He stayed in, the shadows careful not to be noticed by neighbors or by the police. As he reached the pool area, he noticed that Karen was already there, talking to a man in a dark suit. The man's briefcase rested on the ground as they spoke quietly. Ryan crouched behind a nearby bush and activated a small camera disguised as a rock. He recorded their conversation carefully, listening to the words. "We need to ensure the system runs without interruption," the man said. "The transfers must stay consistent. If the FBI or auditors notice, it could be risky." Karen's voice was firm. "I am doing my best. The residents do not suspect anything. My husband ensures no one asks too many questions." Ryan's heart raced slightly. This was confirmation. Karen was aware of the operation, at least partially, and Dale was unknowingly assisting by acting as a barrier. The pieces were falling into place. He took another careful recording and retreated silently. Back in his home, he analyzed the footage. The conversation suggested a larger network controlling multiple neighborhoods. Crescent Valley was only one node in the system. Ryan decided to gather more evidence inside the HOA office itself. He could not access the private records room directly without raising suspicion, but he could observe the network indirectly. He returned the next day under the pretense of filing a complaint about the pool card system. Mira, the assistant, greeted him politely. "Good morning, Mr. Ryan," she said. "How can I help you today?" "I need to submit a complaint regarding my pool access," Ryan replied. "The system shows errors sometimes. I want to ensure everything is functioning correctly." Mira nodded. "I can help you with that. Karen is busy in the private room, but I can take the details." As she typed, Ryan subtly placed a small signal tracker on the counter, disguised as a pen. The tracker would record digital activity and trace connections from the private room to other networks. Mira did not notice, and Karen remained inside. speaking to the man from Silver Arc Solutions. After a few hours, Ryan collected the tracker. The data showed multiple external connections, confirming that the HOA network was linked to servers outside Crescent Valley. This meant the system was not just local, it was part of a larger operation. That evening, Dale stopped by Ryan's house again. He was casual this time, but still watchful. "I noticed you've been very active around the neighborhood," he said. "Do you mind if I ask what you're doing?" Ryan smiled politely. "Just enjoying the area and meeting people. Is there a problem?" Dale shook his head. "No, but my wife is concerned. She thinks some residents are too curious about HOA matters." "I understand," Ryan said calmly. "I respect the rules. I don't want trouble for anyone." Dale looked at him for a moment longer and then left. Ryan exhaled slowly. Each encounter was a test, but he was handling it carefully. The next morning, Ryan received a message on his secure line. It was from his contact at the bureau. "Any confirmation of unusual activity?" Ryan typed a careful reply. "Confirmed. HOA network linked to external servers. Possible data laundering operation. Monitoring closely." He continued his observation. For the next few days, using both digital trackers and subtle physical surveillance, he noticed that Karen's behavior changed when the man from Silver Arc Solutions visited. She became tense, careful with her words, and strictly enforced rules among staff. Dale seemed unaware, carrying out his patrol duties with the same confidence as always. One evening, Ryan saw something unexpected. Karen met another neighbor, a quiet woman named Sana, near the community office. Sana whispered to Karen and handed her a folder. Ryan observed from a distance, curious about the exchange. He activated a small recording device hidden in his backpack and captured their conversation. "Everything is ready," Sana said softly. "The transfers will begin tomorrow. Make sure your husband does not interfere." Karen nodded. "He never notices anything. He trusts the system too much. As long as the residents don't ask, we're fine." Ryan's mind raced. The operation was moving fast and Karen was clearly involved, at least partially. He needed to act carefully. Any mistake could blow his cover and alert everyone to his true identity. Over the next week, Ryan gathered all the evidence he could. He had recordings of conversations, digital traces of the network, and patterns of behavior from Karen, Dale, and the Silver Arc representatives. Every detail added to a clear picture. Crescent Valley's HOA was being used as a hidden channel for a larger financial operation. He knew the next step was crucial. He needed to plan how to expose the network without putting himself at risk. He could not rely solely on technology. He needed human observation and timing. One afternoon, Ryan walked to the park with his backpack. He watched as children played and neighbors chatted. Karen and Dale were there overseeing a community event. Ryan noted every movement, every glance. The operation was moving faster than he had expected, and he needed to intervene soon. He found a quiet bench and began analyzing his data. The signals from the HOA private room were consistent with external transfers. He had captured multiple conversations confirming the purpose of these transfers. The digital network was cleverly disguised as normal HOA operations, but it was anything but normal. As the sun began to set, Ryan packed his equipment and walked home. He felt a mix of anticipation and focus. He was close to uncovering the truth. The neighborhood might appear perfect, but behind the polished lawns and friendly faces, a hidden network of operations was running. Ryan knew the final pieces of the puzzle would not be easy to gather. He would need patience, careful planning, and quick thinking. But he had one advantage: experience. He had dealt with criminals, hackers, and secret networks before. Crescent Valley would not be different. That night, Ryan sat by the window with a small notebook. He wrote down the patterns he had seen, the names involved, and the connections he had traced. Each entry brought him closer to understanding the full scope of the operation. Outside, the neighborhood slept peacefully. Streetlights glowed softly, and the quiet hum of the community created an illusion of calm. But Ryan knew better. Danger was hidden in the ordinary. The challenge was not violence or force, but patience, observation, and strategy. Rian leaned back and whispered to himself, "This is just the beginning. Soon the hidden network will be exposed and Crescent Valley will see the truth." The morning sun spread warm light across Crescent Valley, giving the neighborhood a peaceful appearance. Children were riding bikes, neighbors were watering their lawns, and birds chirped from the treetops. Everything looked calm, but Ryan knew the neighborhood was far from ordinary. The hidden network he had uncovered was still active, and today he planned to set a trap that would reveal the truth. Ryan started his day like usual, reviewing all the recordings, digital signals, and notes he had collected. He had observed Karen, Dale, and the Silver Arc representatives closely. Every conversation and every pattern pointed to one conclusion. The HOA system was being used as a cover for financial operations. These operations were disguised as normal community maintenance, but they were anything but ordinary. Ryan's plan was simple but required precision. He could not act alone without raising suspicion. He decided to manipulate the situation so that Karen, Dale, and any external actors would unknowingly reveal the full extent of their actions. He needed them to think they were safe while he gathered undeniable evidence. By late morning, Ryan left his house carrying a small backpack containing recording devices, signal trackers, and a miniature surveillance drone. The drone was small, no larger than a tennis ball, but it could fly quietly and record both video and audio. He activated it discreetly and sent it hovering near the HOA office. From a distance, Ryan observed as Karen entered the office. She was followed by her husband, Dale, who seemed as confident as ever. He did not notice Ryan or the small drone hovering quietly above the building. Ryan pressed a small button on his wristwatch, recording every movement, every word, and every glance. Inside the office, Karen met with the Silver Arc representative. Ryan focused the drone's camera on the private records room. He could see multiple computer screens displaying transaction logs and coded communications. The data transfer was scheduled for later that afternoon. Rian smiled slightly. The trap was taking shape. He had set up an automated alert system to notify him when any unusual network activity occurred. By combining the drone footage with the digital tracking, he would have undeniable proof of the operation. Meanwhile, he noticed Dale patrolling outside. The officer's routine was predictable, and Rian had anticipated it. He made a mental note of Dale's movements, knowing that the officer's presence would help the trap appear more natural. No one would suspect that the watchful husband was unknowingly part of Ryan's plan. By noon, Rian moved closer to the office under the guise of walking through the neighborhood. He carried a small notebook, pretending to write down ideas for landscaping and home improvements. From his position near the community park, he could see both the office and the pool. Everything was in place. Suddenly, Mira, the HOA assistant, walked outside carrying files. She paused for a moment, glancing toward Ryan. He waved casually, pretending to take notes. Mira nodded politely and went back inside. Ryan knew her role was minor, but even small details mattered. At 1 p.m., the drone detected unusual network activity in the private records room. Data transfers were beginning ahead of schedule. Ryan activated his wristwatch recorder to capture live audio from the drone. Every word inside the office was recorded, including the conversation between Karen and the Silver Arc representative. "Everything must be precise," the representative said. "Any errors could attract attention from auditors or law enforcement." Karen nodded. "I understand. Dale and I are managing the neighborhood. No one will notice. The residents are too focused on their daily routines." Ryan's eyes narrowed. The confirmation he needed was clear. Karen was fully aware of the purpose of the transfers, even if she did not know the full network. Her husband was acting as an unknowing guardian of the operation. He decided it was time to escalate the trap. Ryan sent a subtle signal to the network tracker, causing a minor but visible error in the HOA system. The computers in the private room blinked with warning messages. The Silver Arc representative looked concerned. Karen's hands trembled slightly as she typed rapidly to correct the issue. Ryan watched closely. The small error forced them to interact directly with the data, revealing patterns and hidden codes. Every move they made was recorded, giving Ryan insight into how the system operated and the steps they used to conceal transactions. By mid-afternoon, Dale left for a routine patrol, leaving Karen alone in the office. Ryan knew this was the moment to gather the final evidence. He activated the drone to fly directly inside through a small vent, invisible to anyone below. The drone recorded high-resolution video of the computer screens, revealing the transfer logs and coded instructions that proved the operation was fraudulent. Karen typed quickly, unaware of the drone capturing everything. Her voice was soft but firm as she spoke into the phone. "Yes, everything is ready for tomorrow. The transfers must remain consistent and we cannot afford any mistakes." Ryan smiled. This was the confirmation he needed. With both video and audio evidence, he could expose the operation completely. He slowly backed away from the area, ensuring the drone remained in position to continue recording until the network activity ended. By late afternoon, Ryan returned home. He reviewed the footage and cross-referenced it with his digital tracking. Every detail aligned perfectly. He now had a complete record of Karen's involvement, the external network, and the use of the HOA system as a hidden channel for operations. However, he knew that confronting them directly could be risky. Karen was controlling and careful. The Silver Arc representative was intelligent and cautious. Ryan needed to plan the final confrontation so that they would be caught without realizing they were being monitored until the moment it was too late. That evening, Ryan prepared a careful plan. He would call a neighborhood meeting, using the excuse of a routine HOA audit. This would force Karen, Dale, and any associates to gather in a single location. Meanwhile, the bureau team would be ready to intercept them, ensuring no one could escape. He also prepared a small signal jammer disguised as a briefcase. This would prevent any attempt to delete or alter digital records during the confrontation. Every move was calculated, every step prepared. The next morning, Ryan walked to the park carrying his notebook. He placed a few subtle signs indicating a community meeting was scheduled. Residents noticed the signs and began talking, curious about the purpose of the meeting. Ryan knew that Karen would not resist attending. She would see it as an opportunity to assert her authority. By noon, Karen arrived at the park with Dale. She carried her clipboard and wore her usual stern expression. Ryan greeted her politely. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Karen. I wanted to invite you to a community review meeting. It is a routine check to ensure everything in the neighborhood is functioning properly." Karen's eyes narrowed slightly but then relaxed. "A review meeting? That is acceptable. We always welcome proper oversight." Dale looked at Ryan with suspicion. "What kind of review?" he asked. Ryan smiled calmly. "Just a routine audit. I thought it would be useful for all residents to see how the HOA operates. Transparency is always helpful." Karen nodded, apparently satisfied. She did not suspect that this meeting was part of a larger trap. Ryan's plan was working exactly as intended. Residents began arriving, curious and polite. Some brought notes, others watched quietly. Ryan made sure to place subtle recording devices around the area, disguised as pens, notebooks, and water bottles. Every angle was covered. Once everyone was seated, Ryan began speaking. "Thank you for coming. Today we are reviewing HOA operations and ensuring that all systems are functioning correctly. It is important for the community to understand how decisions are made and how resources are managed." Karen listened attentively, unaware that the conversation and her movements were being recorded. She assumed Ryan was simply organizing a regular community review. Ryan continued carefully. "During the review, we have noticed some unusual activity in the system. It appears there may have been errors in data management that need to be addressed. This is a routine procedure, but it is important that we understand the full scope of operations." Karen's hands tightened on her clipboard. Dale looked concerned but said nothing. Ryan maintained a calm and polite tone, making it clear that he was guiding the meeting professionally. By mid-afternoon, Karen was visibly tense. Her assistant Mira tried to help, but Ryan's subtle questioning and the presence of the devices forced them to reveal patterns and codes they used to hide transactions. The Silver Arc representative, who had arrived secretly to monitor Karen, grew increasingly nervous as every move was captured on video. Ryan's trap had worked perfectly. By orchestrating a routine review and using careful observation and technology, he had gathered all the evidence needed to expose the network. He now had clear proof of fraudulent activity, Karen's involvement, and the external actors controlling the system. As the sun began to set, Ryan stepped back. The meeting had ended and residents were leaving, unaware that they had witnessed the first step of a major revelation. Karen and Dale remained behind, confused but unaware of the full extent of the evidence against them. Ryan smiled faintly. The trap had succeeded. The hidden network was now fully exposed to him. The next step would be to bring in the authorities and ensure that the operation could no longer continue. The storm had passed, leaving the streets wet and shining under the pale morning light. The once quiet neighborhood looked normal again from the outside, but everything had changed. The night before had been filled with chaos. FBI agents had moved in fast after Mark sent the final signal. The truth had been revealed to everyone who mattered. The homeowners were safe now, but the mystery that had lived inside their calm lives had finally come into the open. Mark stood near the pool where everything had started. The air smelled of rain and metal. The blue water rippled gently under the weak sunlight. A few broken devices floated on the surface, pieces of alien technology that had once looked like simple HOA security sensors. He watched as a small FBI team collected the remains and sealed them in metallic containers. The team worked quietly, speaking in short-coded phrases while the rest of the neighborhood stayed indoors. Mark knew that by evening no one would remember what had happened here. The FBI would clean the scene and replace the memories with something ordinary. Tom walked up to Mark. His uniform was soaked from the earlier storm, and his face looked tired. He had learned more about the universe in one night than he had in all his years as a police officer. His mind still struggled to accept what he had seen. Helen was in a safe house under medical care, and the alien control device that had been attached to her smartwatch was now with the science division. She would recover slowly, and she would remember very little of what she had done under the influence. Tom stopped near Mark and spoke in a quiet voice. "I still can't believe it. All this time I thought you were just another new neighbor, and the HOA was just strict, not dangerous." Mark gave a faint smile. "Sometimes danger hides behind polite rules. That's how they stay invisible. You did the right thing coming last night. If you hadn't hesitated, it could have gone much worse." Tom nodded. He looked around at the pool, the wet concrete, the glowing containers being carried away. "So it's really over?" "For now, yes," Mark said. "The main network is broken. Their satellite link is cut, but this was only one part of a much bigger system. The aliens were using small groups like this to collect fragments of data. We found 3 other neighborhoods with the same pattern. The good news is that your area was the core of it, so breaking it here slowed them down." Tom stared at him. "How long have you been watching them?" Mark looked out toward the horizon. "Almost 2 years. The HOA seemed too perfect. Every house had the same system, the same signal pattern. It took time to confirm what it really was. When I moved in, I was already tracking their transmissions. I didn't expect the human members to be unaware. They were controlled, not complicit." Tom sighed deeply. "Helen always said the HOA was about order. She liked rules, but she would never help something like that willingly. I feel like I should have noticed earlier." "You couldn't have," Mark said firmly. "They used frequencies that influenced judgment. The devices emitted signals just under the range of human hearing. They made people feel more compliant. It's how they created obedience without suspicion." Tom rubbed his forehead. "So my wife wasn't in control at all?" Mark shook his head. "She wasn't. She was their first target because she already had authority. The aliens needed a leader who could give commands that others would follow without question. Helen fit that role perfectly." A moment of silence passed between them. The soft hum of FBI vehicles filled the air as the team prepared to leave. A large transport craft hovered above the neighborhood, disguised to look like a weather balloon to anyone watching from a distance. It lowered a magnetic lift that carried the sealed containers of alien tech upward. Within minutes, the poolside looked ordinary again, though the memory of last night's light storm and alien revelation would stay with Mark and Tom forever. Tom broke the silence again. "What happens to her now?" "She'll be debriefed and treated. The control signal left some neural traces, but the doctors can remove them. After that, she'll return home. She may not remember everything, but she'll recover her normal life." Tom nodded. Relief and sadness mixed in his eyes. "And you? Will you stay?" Mark looked around the quiet houses, at the wet lawns and the distant sound of children playing somewhere inside their homes. "For a while," he said. There's still cleanup to do, and I want to make sure no traces remain. The aliens used hidden storage nodes under the park's ground. Until I'm sure they're gone, I'll stay here. Tom extended his hand. Thank you. Not just for saving her, but for protecting all of us. Mark shook his hand firmly. You helped too. When you chose to trust me, that changed the outcome. Remember that? Tom gave a small nod, then walked away toward his car. The sound of his footsteps faded, leaving Mark alone by the pool again. As the sun climbed higher, the air warmed. The reflection of clouds on the pool's surface looked peaceful again, hiding the truth that something otherworldly had been buried beneath it. Mark sat on a nearby bench and opened his tablet. Lines of data scrolled across the screen, showing the decoded messages from the alien network. Each message contained coordinates and fragments of Earth's defense information. The aliens had been collecting small pieces, never enough to draw attention, but together they formed a larger pattern. They were patient and they were learning. Mark sent a secure report to headquarters. The message was simple and clear. Operation Pool Key concluded successfully. Local control restored. Threat neutralized. Awaiting further instructions. He closed the tablet and looked toward the horizon. He wondered how many more hidden colonies like this still existed, quietly using ordinary humans as shields. Later that day, the neighborhood began to wake from its strange quiet. People stepped out of their homes, confused about why the streets were blocked earlier. The FBI team had already replaced their memories with the idea of a gas leak that required evacuation. It was easier and safer that way. Only Mark and Tom remembered what had really happened. The others went about their day, watering plants, walking pets, and talking about normal things. Mark returned to his house and sat at his desk. His communication device buzzed softly, signaling a message from his superior, Director Allen. The voice on the other end was calm. Good work, Agent. We've confirmed the tech recovered from your location is from the same source as the other two networks. We'll move the samples to the lunar lab for testing. Stay on standby in case of further activity. Understood, Mark replied. Any sign of the origin point? Not yet, the voice said. But we have a lead. A cluster of signals in the Pacific. You may be reassigned soon. For now, secure your position and maintain normal cover. The call ended and silence filled the room again. Mark leaned back, letting the quiet sink in. He could hear faint laughter from the houses nearby. It felt strange to know that these ordinary people had been living beside something so dangerous without realizing it. Humans often underestimated themselves, but moments like this reminded Mark why his kind was still standing strong in a universe filled with threats. Humanity's greatest power was not technology but resilience. Even when controlled or deceived, they found ways to fight back, to survive, to adapt. That evening, Mark walked through the neighborhood once more. The sun was setting behind the rooftops, painting the sky in soft orange and pink. A few children ran past him, chasing a ball. He smiled faintly. The peace felt fragile but precious. He reached the park at the edge of the community where the grass was still wet. He knelt down near a small metal hatch half buried under the ground. He opened it and looked inside. A faint blue light flickered, a leftover trace of alien energy. He pulled out a containment unit and placed it over the hatch. The device hummed, absorbing the remaining energy until the light disappeared completely. He stood up, dusted his hands, and whispered to himself, "Now it's really over." When night came, the sky was clear. Stars shone brightly above the calm houses. Mark sat on his porch drinking a cup of coffee. The events of the past days replayed in his mind. He had seen fear, confusion, and courage. He had seen a man choose truth over pride and a woman freed from control. He had seen humans stand strong against a hidden invasion. It was moments like these that reminded him why he continued his work. The next morning, Tom visited again, bringing news that Helen was recovering. She remembered only fragments, enough to understand that something had gone wrong but not enough to feel guilt. She wanted to rebuild the HOA into something positive for the community. Tom said she planned to dissolve most of the strict rules and create a simpler group, focused on helping neighbors instead of controlling them. Mark smiled when he heard that. It was a good start. Days passed and the neighborhood slowly returned to normal life. The story of the storm and the supposed gas leak became a brief topic of gossip, then faded. The FBI teams finished their cleanup and left without trace. Mark stayed a few weeks longer, quietly monitoring signals. When he was sure there was nothing left, he packed his things. Before leaving, he left a small envelope at Tom's doorstep. Inside it was a note that read, "Stay watchful. The sky is never empty." It also included a contact number that would reach him through a secure line if trouble ever returned. Mark drove out of the neighborhood as the sun rose behind him. The road stretched ahead, leading toward his next mission. He didn't know where the next signal would